Let's go to Washington, D.C. now, where we have Giorgio Cafiero, the CEO of Gulf State Analytics, a Washington, D.C.-based geopolitical risk consulting firm. Thank you so much again for joining us here on Al Jazeera. How far apart do you think that Iran and the U.S. are now?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me back on your program. At this point, there definitely is a huge gap between the two sides. I think that it's quite clear that the Trump administration is insisting on maintaining a very maximalist set of demands. This puts the Trump administration very much into alignment with the Israeli government. And I think that these types of demands are really non-starters for Tehran. I think on the Iranian side, the Iranian side has demonstrated a willingness to show some flexibility, to compromise on some sensitive issues. I think the Trump administration is choosing not to show any willingness to compromise on its side. And I think without the Trump administration doing so, the talks are going to remain in deadlock, and this creates a very dangerous situation in which everyone should be very concerned about conflict re-erupting at some point soon.
Giorgio, I want to ask you about this statement from Iran's parliamentary speaker. He says mistaken strategy and mistaken decisions will always lead to mistaken results. Is there a risk at this point that there could be a miscalculation from either side leading to potential military conflict again?
Always. This ceasefire is very fragile. It's not sustainable. And at any moment, there can be a misstep, miscommunication that results in the conflict restarting at any moment. So I think in terms of the statement that you're referencing here, I think Iran is trying to send out the message that it will not capitulate and that it is willing to compromise in certain ways, but it is not willing to completely surrender to the Trump administration's maximalist demands. I think Iran is concerned about the type of precedent that that would set. So I think Iran is trying to be very firm in its messaging right now, that it is always open to diplomacy, but also prepared for war at any moment.
What do you think the Gulf states should expect at this point? Is it going to be a drawn-out conflict with the Strait of Hormuz possibly staying under Iranian control?
I think the GCC states are preparing for a new reality in the Gulf sub-region. I think some form of Iranian control over the strait throughout the foreseeable future is something that they certainly find very, very undesirable, extremely problematic, but I think they're preparing for a future in which that is the case. At this point, I think there are some major divisions within the Gulf between those which the GCC states, such as the UAE, which seem to really be doubling down on relationships with its relationship with Israel and is somewhat aligned with the Trump administration's more hawkish approaches toward Iran, and then others in the Gulf, such as Saudi Arabia, Oman, and Qatar, which definitely do not approve of Iran's acts of aggression toward the GCC states, but ultimately believe that it's in their interest not to get pulled into a war that would create no good outcomes for them. And ultimately, they're focused on trying to find ways to engage the Iranians diplomatically, as difficult as that may be in certain ways.
Giorgio Cafiero, the CEO of Gulf State Analytics. Thank you so much, Giorgio.